Can you remember the last time someone smiled, touched your shoulder, and made you feel safe, yet something in their eyes stayed strangely still? Did their kindness feel warm in the moment, but colder after you noticed what happened next? The danger is rarely hidden behind open hostility. It often arrives through familiar access, easy laughter, and carefully timed concern. It isn't the smile that exposes the threat. It's the pattern beneath the smile, especially when advantage matters more than loyalty. Here's what nobody tells you: the people closest to you may possess the clearest map of your habits, weaknesses, and blind spots. Machiavelli recognized that appearances can protect a person's intentions, while actions under pressure reveal what pleasant words conceal. By the end, you will know how to notice the small changes in attention, timing, praise, and silence that separate genuine warmth from calculated closeness. You will learn to watch what happens when the room stops rewarding someone for looking kind, and how to remain difficult to read while you read the pattern clearly. Before we go further, write this in the comments: I measure warmth by patterns. This isn't for the algorithm. It is a reminder to yourself that trust should be informed by consistency, not purchased by a pleasant face. Now, let's begin. Number 1. The warmth that appears only when you are useful. Some people do not offer kindness as a constant expression of regard. They offer it as an investment, then wait to see what it returns. Their attention becomes generous when you have access, influence, information, or a problem they want solved. When the advantage disappears, so does the warmth. It isn't that every change in attention proves betrayal. It is that repeated changes reveal what the relationship is built on. The mechanism is conditional reinforcement. Attention appears, you respond, and the other person receives access or assistance. Then the attention vanishes when the benefit is gone. Because the warmth returns from time to time, you may keep waiting for the earlier version of the relationship to come back. That inconsistency can make you work harder for moments of closeness that should never have required performance. Watch what happens when you have nothing to provide. Do they still ask how you are, or does every conversation become shorter, flatter, and more distracted? When you cannot open a door for them, do they remain present, or do they suddenly discover that they are too busy? Pay attention to whether their concern survives the loss of convenience. Try a quiet test that requires no deception. Do not volunteer a favor. Do not announce your lack of influence. Simply remain yourself without supplying the usual benefit. Notice whether they become curious about your life or impatient with your limits. If their interest only revives when you become useful again, the pattern is speaking more clearly than their affectionate language. Machiavelli understood that people often display loyalty toward the benefits attached to a person, not necessarily toward the person themselves. The smile may be genuine in the moment, but the motive behind it can still be conditional. Most people notice affection when it is offered. The few also notice what happens when the reward is removed. You do not need to accuse anyone. You need to compare behavior across circumstances. Real warmth does not require constant usefulness. Calculated closeness does. Do not confuse a person's appreciation for what you provide with respect for who you are. Do not call every convenient connection friendship. Do not let repeated usefulness become the price of being remembered. The mini-close is simple. Remove the benefit, observe the bond, and let consistency answer what charm avoids. Number 2. The person who collects your weaknesses and disguises it as intimacy. There is a difference between someone who remembers what matters to you and someone who quietly inventories what can unsettle you. The second person asks personal questions with unusual precision, encourages disclosure, and makes you feel understood before you have decided whether they are safe. One of the oldest defenses of the mind is to exchange secrets for closeness. Once you reveal something vulnerable, the relationship can feel deeper than it has earned the right to be. The mechanism is asymmetrical knowledge. They learn more about your inner reactions than you learn about their intentions. You may know their stories, but not their standards. You may know what they claim to value, but not how they handle another person's confidence. The imbalance feels like intimacy because disclosure moves quickly, yet trust has not moved with it. Listen to the questions. Are they curious about your values or mainly interested in your fears, conflicts, insecurities, and private reactions? Do they remember your weak points more clearly than your principles? When you share a concern, do they help you think, or do they store the detail for a later conversation? You can answer without surrendering the whole map. Offer a general principle instead of a private history. Share a small boundary and watch whether it is respected. Mention a difficulty without giving every detail, then observe whether they become patient or press for more. A safe person can tolerate an unanswered question. An unsafe person often treats your boundary as a puzzle to solve. The danger is not that every private question is malicious. It is that information creates leverage. Machiavelli's view of human nature leaves little room for carelessness. What another person knows about your anxiety, ambition, or shame can become a handle on your decisions. It isn't vulnerability that makes you weak. It is handing vulnerability that makes you weak. It is handing vulnerability to someone whose character has not been tested. Ask yourself what they do with information that cannot benefit them immediately. Do they protect it when no one is watching? Do they use your admission to understand you or to predict and pressure you? The person who remembers your pain but ignores your boundaries may not be caring for you. They may be learning the most efficient route around your judgment. Watch for the person who makes confession feel like proof of trust, then brings your confession back when an argument begins. Notice who can make you feel seen while steadily learning where you are easiest to move. Share slowly. Let consistency earn access. Do not mistake rapid disclosure for earned closeness. Do not let someone's interest create an obligation to reveal more. The mini-close is this: intimacy is not measured by how much you disclose, but by how safely your disclosure is handled. Number 3. The praise that arrives with a hidden direction. Flattery is not always admiration. Sometimes it is a way of steering your attention. A person praises the exact quality they want you to overuse, or compliments you just before asking for something that serves them. They may call you decisive when they want you to act quickly, loyal when they want you to overlook disloyalty, or uniquely capable when they want you to accept a burden no one else would carry. The mechanism is identity pressure. Once a flattering description has been placed on you, refusing the request can feel like contradicting your own character. You are no longer deciding only whether the action is wise. You are defending the image they handed you. That is why carefully chosen praise can function like a quiet command, without sounding like one. Why does this work? Approval lowers resistance. When people feel recognized, they become more willing to protect the image that has just been reflected back to them. The pleasant words are not the whole tactic. The tactic is making you behave in a way that proves the compliment true. Pay attention to the timing. Does praise appear before a request, a risky decision, or a demand for secrecy? Does the person admire your strength while discouraging you from asking questions? Do they celebrate your independence, then become offended when you refuse their direction? Pause before accepting the identity being offered. Ask what the compliment requires from you. If someone calls you exceptionally loyal, must you now stay silent? If someone praises your courage, must you now accept unnecessary risk? If someone celebrates your generosity, must you now ignore the cost? The compliment may be accurate and still be used to narrow your choices. It isn't praise that should concern you, it is praise attached to pressure. Machiavelli would have recognized the advantage held by anyone who can make another person believe that obedience is simply the natural expression of their best qualities. Do not reject every kind word. Do not treat suspicion as intelligence. Receive approval, but inspect the destination it is trying to lead you toward. A kind word can still carry a leash. The question is not whether the praise sounds good. The question is whether your freedom remains intact after hearing it. The most dangerous compliment is the one that makes caution feel like weakness. The mini-close accept the recognition, reject the urgency, and decide without performing the identity someone else assigned to you. Number 4. The sudden silence when your position becomes uncertain. A false ally often reveals more through absence than through hostility. When you are winning, they are visible, supportive, and eager to stand near your success. When criticism appears, when a superior turns against you, or when your reputation enters a dangerous season, their messages become delayed and their support becomes vague. They do not attack you directly. They simply stop being available at the moment. Availability would cost them something. The mechanism is risk transfer. While you are strong, association with you gives them comfort, access, or reflected status. When pressure arrives, they calculate whether standing beside you could damage their own position. Their silence shifts the danger onto you while allowing them to preserve the appearance of goodwill. Later, if the situation improves, they can return without admitting that they left. It is not always cowardice in a dramatic form. Sometimes it is a series of small calculations that leave you standing alone. A message goes unanswered. A promise becomes ambiguous. A public supporter becomes privately sympathetic but publicly absent. Each act can be explained away. Together, they reveal a preference for safety over loyalty. Watch the room after your status changes. Who still speaks to you when there is no applause attached? Who avoids defending you but later claims they were always on your side? Who asks for the full story only after the danger has passed? You can learn from this without turning every absence into a verdict. Compare their behavior across conditions. Were they unavailable to everyone or only to you? Did they communicate honestly about their limits, or did they disappear while preserving a flattering image? A person may lack the power to help and still show respect. What matters is not whether they can rescue you, but whether they remain truthful when rescue is impossible. Machiavelli observed that many people call themselves loyal, while loyalty remains profitable. Pressure removes the performance. Most people measure friendship by how warmly someone behaves during comfort. The few measure it by what remains when comfort has been withdrawn. Do not chase the person who disappears. Their absence has already delivered useful information. Do not beg for an explanation from someone whose conduct supplied one. Do not confuse delayed affection after the danger passes with courage during the danger. A silent retreat can be clearer than a loud betrayal. The mini-close is this: when the cost of association rises, watch who remains honest, not who returns once the risk is gone. Number 5. The person who creates confusion then offers to interpret it. Some hidden opponents do not confront you. They disturb the environment around you. They pass along incomplete information, hint that someone is angry, suggest that a decision has already been made, or imply that others are discussing you behind closed doors. Then they return as the calm guide who can explain what everyone else supposedly means. The mechanism is manufactured uncertainty. When the mind cannot see the full situation, it searches for a person who appears to possess the missing piece. The same person who clouds the room can then become the source of relief. You may feel grateful for their explanation without asking whether their earlier warning helped create the confusion. This is a powerful pattern because uncertainty makes the mind search for an anchor. When events feel unclear, the person who claims to possess the missing context gains influence over your interpretation. They may not need to invent every detail. A selective truth, delivered at the right moment, can produce the same confusion as a lie. Ask yourself, why does this person always seem to know the tension before anyone else does? Why do their warnings leave you anxious but dependent on their next explanation? When you verify what they said directly, does the story become smaller, different, or strangely incomplete? Notice the sequence, not just the content. First comes the alarming hint, then comes your agitation, then comes their special interpretation. If the pattern repeats, the issue may not be their accuracy, it may be the role they have created for themselves. They become the gate through which every relationship and decision must pass. Do not reward urgency with instant belief. Ask for the exact words, the source, the time, and the difference between what was observed and what was inferred. Speak to the person involved when it is safe and appropriate. If the interpreter resists direct verification, ask what they gain from keeping the matter indirect. Why should your judgment depend on a report that cannot survive contact with the source? It isn't information that makes someone dangerous. It is information used to isolate you from direct judgment. Machiavelli's colder lesson is that control often begins by shaping what people believe others are thinking. If you cannot speak to the source, you become vulnerable to the interpreter. Slow the process down. Verify what can be verified. Speak directly when it is safe and appropriate. Do not make permanent decisions from temporary confusion. Do not let anxiety turn a rumor into evidence. Do not appoint the person who benefits from uncertainty as the owner of your understanding. The mini-close is simple. When someone controls both the fog and the flashlight, step outside their explanation and check the landscape yourself. Number 6. The ally who needs you divided from everyone else. A smiling enemy often works indirectly by weakening the relationships that could challenge their influence. They may criticize one friend as unreliable, another as jealous, and a third as secretly ambitious. Each comment is presented as concern. Each warning appears designed to protect you. Yet the result is consistent. You trust their interpretation more, and the people around you become less able to compare notes. The mechanism is isolation through triangulation. Instead of allowing two people to resolve a disagreement directly, the intermediary carries selected statements between them. Each person receives a different version of the situation. The intermediary then appears necessary because the conflict cannot be understood without their translation. Over time, independent relationships become dependent on one private channel. Notice how they speak about absent people. Do they bring you information that can never be checked, or do they encourage direct conversations? Do they treat every disagreement as evidence of envy? When you maintain another friendship, do they become wounded, suspicious, or competitive? A genuine warning contains enough respect for your judgment to let you investigate. A controlling warning demands that you accept the conclusion before examining the evidence. Ask whether the person is helping you see a risk or assigning you an enemy. Ask whether they would repeat the same claim in the other person's presence. Ask why direct contact would supposedly make matters worse. A genuine ally may warn you about danger, but they do not need to make themselves the only safe harbor. Machiavelli would recognize the strategic value of separating people before turning them against one another. It isn't protection when every path of verification leads back to one person. It is dependence wearing the mask of care. Most people hear one alarming story and begin defending themselves against an absent enemy. The few preserve enough independence to test the story before changing their relationships. Keep your connections distinct enough that one person cannot define every other person for you. You do not need to force reconciliation, but you do need to protect direct knowledge from borrowed certainty. The moment you feel pressure to choose sides without evidence, pause. Keep your relationships distinct enough that one person cannot define all of them. You stop accepting borrowed hatred. You stop surrendering direct contact. You stop allowing someone else's anxiety to become your worldview. Do not mistake constant warnings for extraordinary insight. Do not call every disagreement betrayal. Do not let the person who dislikes your independence describe independence as disloyalty. The more they insist that everyone else is dangerous, the more carefully you should examine the position they are asking you to occupy. The mini-close is this: preserve direct contact, test the evidence, and refuse any relationship that requires the destruction of all your other relationships. Number 7. The person who becomes most revealing when you stop reacting. This is where detection becomes composure. A hidden planner depends on predictable access to your emotions. They know what provokes you, what makes you explain yourself, and how quickly you rush to repair tension. Their smile remains steady while they test which remark, silence or accusation will make you move. The mechanism is a reaction loop. They introduce a stimulus, you respond quickly, and your response gives them information. They learn what you fear, what you will defend, and how much pressure is needed to change your behavior. The subject of the argument may be secondary. The subject of the argument may be secondary. The real reward is access to your attention and the ability to set its direction. When you stop reacting on command, the arrangement changes. The person may become unusually curious, then unusually cold. They may intensify the pressure, ask why you are acting differently, or create a new emergency to pull you back into the old rhythm. The reaction is evidence because the behavior was never only about the subject being discussed. It was also about whether they could still direct your attention. Watch what happens when you answer later instead of immediately. Say less, ask for specifics. Decline to defend yourself against vague claims. Does the person become clearer, or do they become more dramatic? Do they respect your pause, or do they attempt to punish it? Use calm questions that return responsibility to the speaker. What exactly are you asking for? Which part requires an answer now? What evidence supports that conclusion? A clear concern can survive precise questions. A pressure tactic often becomes irritated by them because its strength depends on speed, ambiguity, or emotional noise. It isn't emotional distance that makes you difficult to move. It is emotional ownership. Machiavelli placed great value on appearing steady while observing the motives around you, because the person who reveals every feeling gives others a map of the road into them. You do not need to become unreadable through cruelty. Become unreadable through discipline. Let your face remain calm while your judgment gathers detail. Let your answer arrive after your understanding, not before it. Do not perform outrage to prove that you care. Do not offer a complete defense to every incomplete accusation. Do not allow another person's urgency to become your schedule. If the pressure rises only after your calm appears, you have learned something important. If the person respects your boundary, clarification remains possible. If they punish the boundary, the relationship was likely relying on access rather than mutual regard. The mini-close is this: pause before you respond, and the person who depended on your reflex may reveal the purpose behind the pressure. And here is the final distinction. The goal is not to suspect every smile. It is to stop treating every smile as evidence of safety. Genuine allies can survive your boundaries, your questions, your success, and your quiet. Those planning your fall often need you hurried, isolated, flattered, or emotionally exposed. The people who can no longer move you with a raised eyebrow, a sudden silence, or a carefully chosen compliment have lost their easiest advantage. Not because you became hard, but because you became observant. Remember what you saw today. Warmth that disappears when usefulness ends, questions that collect weaknesses instead of building trust, praise that tries to steer your next move, silence that arrives when your position becomes risky, confusion created by the person offering to explain it, warnings that separate you from everyone except the warning giver, pressure that reveals itself when you stop reacting, conditional warmth, asymmetrical knowledge, identity pressure, risk transfer, manufactured uncertainty, isolation through triangulation. The reaction loop. The pattern is not one strange look or one imperfect conversation. It is repeated behavior under changing conditions. You measure words against timing, kindness against cost, and loyalty against pressure. You stop rushing to prove yourself. You stop borrowing someone else's interpretation. You stop offering access before character has earned it. You compare warmth with usefulness. You compare questions with boundaries. You compare praise with pressure. You compare support with risk. You compare warnings with evidence. You compare closeness with independence. You compare provocation with your ability to pause. The goal is not to become cold or suspicious. It is to become clear. This is about recognizing conditional warmth, emotional leverage, isolation, and manufactured confusion when they are used on you, not using them on anyone. Awareness should protect your judgment, not poison your relationships. Stay open to genuine people, but let consistency decide who comes closer. Recognize the pattern. Defend your judgment, not harm another person. Remain aware, not bitter. The strongest defense is not constant suspicion. It is the refusal to surrender your interpretation, your boundaries, or your pace to someone who has not earned that authority. Remember the words you wrote at the beginning. I measure warmth by patterns. Let that sentence remind you that trust is not denied by careful observation, it is strengthened by it. And while you are there, the pinned comment holds Virtue Pool, the Machiavelli doctrine, a complete system for forging your own mind into something difficult to read, difficult to rush, and difficult to move, while seeing the motives of the people around you with greater clarity. It belongs to the person building both the iron of self-command and the crown of discernment. If this sharpened something in you, subscribe. The next lesson goes deeper. A calm mind leaves no handle for a smiling enemy to grasp.